Are you looking for a space where you will learn to improve your mental strength, emotional health, and heal your insecurities from the inside out? Take the first step to living a more meaningful life with the Better Me with Body by Bree podcast. I'm your host, Bree. I'm a certified personal trainer, entrepreneur, and mother of 3. I've helped empower thousands of women to take action through fitness, nutrition, meditation, personal development, and aligning thoughts with action. This podcast is for those who are ready to feel inspired and motivated to live a more purposeful life. Let's grow together. If you or your child has ever struggled with skin issues, eczema, or any type of allergies, and you're wanting to move to a holistic approach, I would encourage you to listen to this episode because I have Dr. Anna Maria Temple, who is an amazing resource, and she's going to walk us through how to heal skin issues like eczema from the inside out, also how to check your environment and how to be an advocate for your child so that they have a more positive, healthy outlook on life, and also they're able to function how they're meant to function and their bodies can heal from the inside out. So I have Dr. Anna Marie Temple, and she is a board-certified pediatrician. She's been treating kids for 18 years, practicing in a traditional model for 10 years, until transitioning to a holistic approach where she has changed thousands of children's lives. She's known for her extensive experience in the treatment of eczema and other childhood autoimmune diseases. And Dr. Anna Maria Temple is a best-selling author and social media influencer that has appeared on hundreds of podcasts, news stations, stage presentations, and online programs. And this was so incredibly informative. I feel like every single parent needs to hear this. And it just really helps you open your eyes to see areas of your life that you can improve that will make a big impact on your child and on yourself as well. So let's take a look. Here we go. Oh my goodness, Dr. Anna Maria, I don't think you understand how starstruck I am that you are on the podcast today.
I am so excited to be here.
I'm so excited. We are so lucky to have you. You're just a wealth of knowledge, and I love how you make it relatable to women and to moms, and it's not overwhelming. You do it in a way that you want to change, that you want to help your children, and you're just so knowledgeable and so approachable that it's like this perfect mix for moms in my situation. So thank you.
Oh my gosh, you're so kind. I'll tell you, we're all on a journey, and it's, one little step, because I just see so many people get so overwhelmed and, they'll look at me like, oh, can't believe you eat like this and you do that. And I was like, if you're seeing a 12-year journey, you're not seeing the beginning steps, because it was quite messy.
Right. That's what's so comforting is like, it doesn't have to be perfect. Just start and do what you can. I love that. So I want to kind of give a little overview of your background. And what I love about you is some of your key principles is that you use food to heal most common illnesses. You've healed your children's gut, which then allowed their skin to heal. And you incorporate holistic and integrative medicine to find the cause of your children's illnesses instead of just treat the symptoms, which I think is really, really cool. And because you made the decision to stop the harmful medications and find the root cause of your family's illness, then you were able to watch your children laugh and play outside without stopping to itch and cry. You're able to improve your entire family's health by changing their diet and lifestyle. And I think this is the coolest and probably the scariest part for you is that you left traditional medicine and started a holistic practice, which incorporates the best parts of traditional medicine and the parts of integrative practice. And so now you get to live your dream of healing your children without any harmful medications and helping other parents do the same. So I'm so curious, how did you switch from conventional medicine to holistic pediatrician? And can you tell us a little bit about your story?
Yeah, my children are my greatest medical accomplishment, and they actually are the reason I am in the holistic space. And a lot of holistic doctors, integrative or functional medicine doctors, have a story about either personal healing or children's healing. But, in 2007, I had 3 kids at that time, and I was 5 years into my medical practice, and my children, who are 2, 4, and 6, were plagued by asthma, eczema, seasonal allergies, recurrent ear infection, recurrent croup, constipation, ADHD, chronic sinus infection. And my little guy had seasonal allergies that were so bad that when we would do the Easter egg hunt, he couldn't go outside because his eyes would swell shut. He would have tears streaming down his face and his body was covered in hives. And he would
Sad.
itch uncontrollably. It was the saddest thing you've ever
Oh,
seen.
that breaks my heart.
I know. I still have these vivid, he's like 15. So I have these vivid, memories of that time. And, my kids were on like third round of antibiotics and I'd be like, that's it. I'm taking this 3-ring circus to the doctors and we're going to figure out what is going on. I would travel with a bag of over-the-counter medicines that rivals my current cosmetics bag. It
Oh
was
gosh.
insane. And if I would have left at home, I would be in a panic. I'm like, oh my God, what am I going to do without the Benadryl, the Zyrtec, the steroids, the topical steroid creams? Anyway, so
Oh
I
my
went to the,
gosh. And you were a doctor at that time, right? So you
I know, I
had,
was a doctor.
yes. Okay.
Yeah. And all I knew was medicine. I
Right.
mean, I was like, that's my only solution. I just got to carry this bag of meds around. And so I went to see one of my partners and they were like, oh, well, for the little one, there's no other things that we can do. He's already on 5 allergy meds. The only next recommendation is going to be allergy shots. He was 2 years old.
Oh my
I
gosh.
know. For my 6-year-old daughter, they're like, well, she's taking inhaled steroids that will control her asthma, and the topical steroids will control her eczema. She will take her Zyrtec, which is going to control her asthma and her eczema and her allergies. And she'll eventually outgrow ear infections and recurrent croup, and she'll have some Miralax for her constipation. And as for my middle one, who is so full of snot, let me tell you something, Bree. The kind of snot that when you see that kid these days, they're not going to school. They're not going to
Right.
a
Right.
family.
You can't go anywhere.
No, he would have never left home. He had the most disgusting nose of all time. There was not enough tissues in Costco to hold the situation. And
And like, how do you sleep? Like, how do you
how do you sleep with that? It was so gross. And so for him, they were like, well, he just needs more antibiotics to clear his sinus infections.
No.
And by the time we got to his ADHD, I literally stopped paying attention. But I'll tell you what happened that day when I walked out of that office. My doctor self was like, I got nothing. I don't know what to do. I don't know what to do with this information. My mama self was like, what? My children's story is that they'll be on medicines for the rest of their lives. I was like, that is not possible. And when the warrior mama takes over and she's like,
Oh,
what?
yeah.
Right? It's like, oh yeah, I don't know how we're going to do this, but this is not the story. This is not the answer. And we're going to figure it out, but I don't know what we're going to do. So a week later, I went to my kids' elementary school. And it was on a Tuesday morning, sitting at like first grader desk in that blasting air conditioning of elementary school. And the fog lifted and I totally saw the root cause of my children's issue. All the nutritionists talked was about sugar. And I
Mm.
was like, oh my gosh, I see what I'm feeding my children. And I thought I was doing a great job as a doctor. And they had, strawberries at lunch and they had broccoli at dinner. So I was like, oh my God, they have plants. It's amazing. And so 7:30 that night, I came home from work. I still had my stilettos on when I walked into the pantry and I threw out the Lucky Charms, Cinnamon Toast Crunch, mac and cheese, chicken nuggets, juice boxes, chocolate milk, the Pop-Tarts, the toaster strudel. I mean, you name a garbage, we had it in my pantry. My children were horrified. My husband was like, what? Why are we throwing away perfectly good food?
Like, mom's gone crazy.
Yeah, everyone was like, what's going on? What happened to her? And, then began the era of isolation. I became an outcast in my family. My husband and I fought about over food for the next 5 years.
Oh my
My
gosh.
kids were like, what's going down? And my friends thought I lost my mind. My family pretty much scratched me off their will. And then my doctor friends were like, what are you doing? Like, where's the medical evidence? I was like, I don't have medical evidence, but because it was before Google, but I knew the answer couldn't be wrong to get rid of garbage, food coloring, sugar, processed foods, and replace it with tons of fruits and vegetables.
Mhm.
So over the next 5 years, my kids got better. My husband continued to be sick, at which point he was like, wait a minute, how come you guys are all well, but I'm still the sickly one? So then
Right.
he jumped on board, which made life so much easier. And then, over the next 9 years, they came off They're all their meds. There's no more steroids, no more antibiotics, no more ear infections, no more constipation. All that got better. And then in 2016, we quit our jobs and we moved to New Zealand. No health insurance, no doctors, no medications. And my children thrived. They climbed the highest mountains and bungee jumped off the tallest bridges. And I realized what it's like to feel when you return from chronic disease. So when I came back to the States, I was like, I'm doing medicine differently. And that's why I started a different kind of practice so I can teach others all the things I learned in my journey through my children and help get their kids better without medical intervention whenever possible.
That is such an inspiring story. I love it. You know what's interesting is my holistic doctor that I go to here has a very similar story, but it was herself. She had Lyme's disease and she like couldn't even walk up the stairs, and she was an MD, and they were like, "Sorry, there's nothing we can do for you. Like this is what you have to live with." And she's like, I'm going to find something else." And then she found holistic healing and healing your gut and all of that. And now she's like the fastest one in my gym class. She's like the strongest, fastest. Like she's like, I healed myself. So she left traditional medicine and now she is in the holistic field, which is like you. And I feel like it's it's a different story when it hits home. Like you're so passionate about what you do when it's personal. And so that's really cool.
Yeah. And here, one of the things that actually no one has heard on a podcast ever. So you're the first to know.
Oh, okay.
Actually, in the journey, because the journey's never over. So over the time that this has been going on, and now that I've built my practice over the past 3 years, my husband, who used to fight with me over food, who's an orthopedic surgeon, has been watching all these kids and listening to all these stories of these kids getting better. So he quit orthopedic surgery
No.
3 months ago. He's done operating, and he is the one that actually has put together my eczema course and
That's
actually helped me publish my book and do all the formatting, because he's like, this message needs to get out there. This is incredible. We were never taught this in medical school. So he's now my fierce partner who's like on his own warrior path to help change children's lives. And he's an orthopedic surgeon. It is the best story of all time.
That is amazing. Okay, I have to tell you how I found you because I just love I love your message. I think it really is life-changing, your message that you're sharing with people. So, I'll give you a little background of my daughter Mila. She's 2 years old, but since the day she was born, she's had issues. Like they found out she was allergic to milk protein, so she had a like amino acid formula. Anyway, she's had skin issues since the day she was born. She's had full body rashes, and really bad eczema. And then at about a year, when she started eating solid food more often, she would say like, "My tummy hurts." Like when she could talk, she'd be like, "My tummy hurts." And it started getting worse and worse to like 7 times a day. She's like, "My tummy hurts, my tummy hurts." And then she started being scared to eat food. So I'd offer her food and she'd be like, "I can't eat that. It's going to hurt my tummy." And it was really sad. And so I'm like, okay, we got to take her to specialists. So I took her to 4 different specialists and they tested her for allergies. And they're like, she doesn't have an allergy. So here's a steroid cream. I don't know. That's what they said.
Yeah.
And I'm like, what do you mean? Like, this is her body. So I'm really big on gut health as well. And I know it's tied to your, everything in your body. So I'm like, well, and I said to the doctor, obviously, don't you think that her body is letting us know something is wrong? Like when it's manifesting in the skin, it's like the last resort. Like it's bad at that point. So I'm like, obviously there's something wrong in her body. Like there's nothing you can do or test for. And they're like, sorry, she's not allergic to anything. So I don't know. Here's a steroid cream. That was it. And they like totally dismissed me when I said that.
Yeah.
So anyway, long story short, I did tons of research. I'm like, I'm going to cut out gluten and dairy and just see if it helps. And we had tried to limit dairy for a while, but it's so hard when they're a kid and they're like at birthday parties or you're out eating. So I didn't take it serious enough. Like she would still eat it probably 30 or 40% of the time. And I thought I was doing good by limiting it. But until I cut out dairy and gluten completely, like it literally took 5 days. in 5 days, her rash was gone on her stomach and her belly, or her stomach and her back. Her eczema was completely gone in 5 days. It was crazy. Like it was almost magic. Every day she'd wake up, her skin was clearer and clearer and clearer. And she, in the first time in like 6 months, didn't complain that her stomach was hurting. And I just started crying. I was like, oh my gosh, I don't feel helpless like what you said you experienced with your kids. It's just the most helpless feeling ever. And once you figure it out, you're like, oh my gosh, I have a solution.
Yeah.
And now it's night and day. And then so it took for you, like what you said with your husband, it took my husband a little while to get on the bandwagon too, because he's like, honey, do you think it really makes a difference? You know
Yep.
how men
Yep.
are.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm like, well, you see our child suffering. Like, it's worth it to try. And he's like, okay, we'll try. So she had been good. She'd been good for probably 2 weeks, and her everything completely went away. And then we went on a trip, and then she started complaining her stomach hurt again. And she woke up and her eczema was back. And like, it's weird. It's almost instant. Like it's this rash she gets. And
Mm-hmm.
then, anyway, long story short, Adam was like, oh, I gave her a bag of Doritos last night. I'm like, why would you do that? But it shows how it was
Yep.
almost like his evidence. Like he was
Yes.
like, okay. And now anywhere we go, he's like, everything needs to be gluten and dairy free. Like we cannot give her any, like he's now like your husband,
Yep.
he's kind of like a freak about it, which is good. So anyway, I am just as supportive and excited about your message as you are, because it really changed my daughter's life and my life. And I just feel so sad for all these parents that are lost, that get their kids addicted to steroid creams, and, they have withdrawals and all of that. So I'm curious why you decided to focus your efforts specifically on eczema, because you have a lot on eczema.
Yeah. So when my husband was like, all right, we need to do an online course. And actually we launched the course March of 2020, right as the world was shutting down. But that was not, it was totally coincidence. Because we had been working on it for a while. I was like, all right, because he's like, I feel like I'm trending out of orthopedics and I really want to create this course. I really have this need. I have this drive for some reason. I don't know why. So he's like, what should we talk about? ADHD, he's going through all this stuff. And I go, well, one of our children had eczema, and our second child just finished his bout of eczema randomly that he just developed at 15. And not only that, my dog, a Rhodesian Ridgeback, had eczema. He had a weird skin condition. I'm not a vet, so I don't pretend to be a vet. But my dog, several years ago, as my daughter was getting better from her eczema with the food changes, my dog had this weird skin stuff, and I took him to the vet. They're like, steroids and antibiotics. I'm like, oh, what's new? And then, then he would get better, and then we went back, and he would get these giant patches of blackness on his really beautiful coat. And on the third one, they're like, okay, well, if it keeps happening, we're going to have to do a biopsy, but it may just be the way he is because Rhodesians have sensitive skin. I'm like, are you telling me I have a hideous dog? Is this what you're saying right now? And so I go home. I was like, well, I don't know, but the food changes worked for Allie. What if they work for the dog? And my husband's like, oh Lord, here we go. And and so I did all this research into dog food that could be allergic. I started making my own dog food. My dog's eczema resolved 100% without any medications. Okay, now I did make him constipated because I don't actually know how to make dog food. So then, based on what I found, what I've eliminated from his diet, I then went to the dog food store that had a holistic approach, discussed my findings, and they pointed me to the correct dog food. So he ate he ate raw dog food that was grain free. Grains were actually his thing that got him all riled up. And he, in the past 7 years, not a skin thing in that
That
dog.
is so crazy how our food is directly tied. That is so crazy.
And then that's, I think my husband was like, okay, all right, respect. Okay. So now when he's, for the dog food, he's like, must be this free and that free, because even the dog is high maintenance.
So eczema is just all around you. So you're like, I'm going to tackle this. And how many, do you have a stat for how many children suffer from eczema?
Oh my gosh. So in 1970, the rates of eczema were 1 in 15. And now they are 1 in 5. And I could
No way.
even tell you that in certain populations, it's 1 in 2, which is 50%. But
Oh,
even 1 in 5 is mind boggling. So the situation is getting worse, not better. So if we said, oh my God, but we have the greatest medicines and we have the greatest medical system, right? We should technically have children with less disease. Instead, we have kids with more and more disease. And eczema is just the stepping point. Just like you said, when you saw Mila's skin, it was like, that is because her body is trying to tell us something. And we don't, when we go, oh, they're all going to outgrow their eczema. Well, I'm here to tell you that 75% of kids who have eczema develop seasonal allergies. 50% develop asthma. 20% carry it with them in their adulthood. 6% end up with ADHD and anxiety. So, I mean, it is a march like this. The body has laid out some yellow flags and it's going, something's not right. Something's not right. I don't like something. And we're like, oh, no, you're going to outgrow it. Here's a little steroid cream. Let's keep going. And then what happens is that they have one more thing and another thing. And in the traditional model, here's the thing, the traditional model is really great for acute things. You're in a car accident, they put you back together. Your appendix bursts, they take it out. You have pneumonia that needs to be taken care of right away. It's helpful, right? So it's acute things. The problem is in our traditional model, because I want people, it often comes across that I'm bashing medicine, but
right.
in the chronic model, we are applying the acute care model and the chronic model. And you cannot do that. They're two different entities. Somebody who comes in with one issue is one thing, but when that issue keeps happening over and over and over again, we have to change our approach because why do you keep having ear infections? It doesn't mean you need stronger antibiotics. It means your body's inflamed and
Yeah, there's
you're
a
doing,
reason.
right. There's something underneath it that it's ticking it off. What is it? Same thing with eczema. It's not about stronger and stronger steroids or Dupixent or stronger immune modulators. It is, well, why is your system so on fire? We got to dig deep because if your system's on fire, over time, there's going to be the next thing and the next thing and the other thing.
Right. And since it's all starting in your gut, that's also tied to your brain and depression and mood and hormones and everything. So it's going
Perfectly
to mess
said.
up everything.
Yeah. And you know what? One of the things that I see in our my eczema program is I'll have kids and of various ages and some of them are toddlers and toddlers are generally annoying. I'm speaking now with great love. I'm a pediatrician, but let's be honest, they're slightly annoying. And sometimes you can't tell, is it because he's 2? Is that why he's having a tantrum? Is it because they're 3 and trying to dominate the world? Well, it turns out that when we heal their eczema, their mood gets better. And the parents are like, oh my gosh, I thought that was just like a normal toddler behavior. But it turns out they were so irritated by other things and the eczema was showing us the way, but the inflammation was also on the inside. And with food reintroduction, some of the kids, their eczema never comes back, but their behavior goes downhill. So then they're like, okay, well, forget that. Their skin's good without food, but clearly their brain is not. So we have a clear understanding of how to feed them now.
That's amazing. That's so incredible. So, what causes eczema? Do you have a couple tips for what causes it?
Yeah. Well, so I think the biggest misconception, and I'm going to go into, is that there's a one thing. If I can find the one cream, the one food, the one supplement, the one thing, then that is going to help me figure out eczema. And it's not. It is a whole bunch of things that cause eczema. You can have environmental allergens. So when pollen and dust mites and your dog and all that's too much, it can add to an inflammation of the system. I look at the body as a cup of inflammation. So if your cup is full from pollen, from antibiotics, Tylenol, stress, processed foods, it's going to overflow. And then you come in contact with a dog, you're overflowing. So environmental allergens are a huge thing. Then we have foods. Processed foods and sugar are number 1 and 2. Often people go, okay, you know what? I'm dairy free. And then when I do the dietary intake, I'm like, right, but we have loads of sugar. And a lot of parents are like, oh, but I feel so bad because I took away the cheese. And I mean, they're a kid and they should have fun. And their diet is laden with processed foods and sugar. So processed foods and sugar are number 1 and 2. And then, of course, dairy, like you talked about, that is also super common. Then we have stress. Stress is the most under-recognized toxic thing in our American lifestyle. Let's look at our current pandemic, shall we? Everyone is losing their mind. Everyone is so woundly tight. Parents are stressed, children are stressed, and it's hard to tell how stressed we are when we live in the US. When I moved to New Zealand, it was so obvious that we were the wackadoodle family on the block. Everyone else was totally chilled. And I thought we were chilled. I was like, oh, we've decompressed, we've reduced our activities, we've done this. And then I looked around and I was like, oh my God, we are bonkers. And then everyone outside the United States looks at the Americans and like, you guys are all bonkers. I'm like, okay, yeah, true that. So our stress is incredible. The other thing that no one talks about is the overuse of Tylenol, right? Babies teething this, teething that. They're a little fussy, a little Tylenol, a little Tylenol. How about colicky babies? How about a little Zantac? No, Zantac is directly correlated with increasing the risk of eczema. Tylenol dosing is directly correlated with increase of eczema. How about antibiotics? And not just in children, antibiotics that mamas got while they were pregnant, antibiotics mamas got at birth, because no one is talking to us about the rates of C-section. Do you know we have the highest rates of C-section in the world?
That's so sad. Is that because they want to speed it up or why?
So I have lots of moms that they elect to have a C-section because it's more convenient.
Oh my goodness.
I have OBs that are pushing inductions. Oh, you're about to be at 40 weeks. We should schedule your induction.
Mine did that. Like, oh, you're 39 weeks. Let's get you started. I'm like, wait, is my baby ready? Like, let's strip your membranes. Do you want to schedule your induction at 39 weeks? I'm like, why?
Thank you. Exactly. Again, not an OB. However, Mother Nature knows when the baby's ready to come out. Mm-hmm. And at 39 weeks, we know that pregnancy is 40. So why are we in a rush? And so because of a lot of inductions, this is what I noticed. This is me noticing in practice, and that actually those studies correlate with that. Because we're doing more inductions leads to more C-sections, because when you're doing an induction, you're forcing the uterus to start to contract against the pelvis that is not ready to open up. And that leads to failure to progress, which then leads to C-sections.
Oh my gosh, why did they do this? I feel like it's so backwards.
I know. So I can't tell you. So, when I take care of kids in my practice, I want the mamas to see me before they deliver. I'm like, we need to have a talk. I'm not giving them OB advice. I say, can you please talk to your OB about not doing an induction before 40 weeks? Can you talk to your OB about natural ways that we can get the body ready for delivery, like things like that. And, how about a doula? How about a midwife? How about all these different things? So we start exploring other things so we can put us in the better position to not have a C-section. My firstborn, which happens to be the sickest. So my firstborn was a breech presentation, which means she was upside down and had to be cut out emergently. And so she was the one with the recurrent ear, recurrent croup, eczema, asthma, allergies, constipation, my sickest one by far compared to my other two. And when I had my second child, they were like, okay, we're going to schedule your C-section. I was like, no. And it wasn't because what I know now is because I didn't want to have 3 or 4 major abdominal surgeries, because I knew I wanted like 3 or 4 kids. And I didn't want them to cut me that many times. I was like, can you please just let me push this one out? I really feel like I'm healthy. I work out. I'm doing all this stuff in order to be able to push a body out. And it took a lot of convincing for them to let me to do a VBAC, which is vaginal delivery after C-section. And I did a successful VBAC. Of course, it was really hard, but I did it. And then my third one, I had via vaginal delivery as well. And those two were much healthier than the first one. And that, that story repeats itself because I didn't have antibiotics at birth, which you do with a C-section. So that, and also the antibiotics in our food supply, 60% of our antibiotic exposure comes from the foods we eat. So back to why food is medicine and food is poison. And so a lot of people are like, well, I don't take antibiotics. I'm like, right, but do you know how many antibiotics are in your food? Because that will alter our microbiome and cause eczema. So those are a few things that can be triggering eczema that a lot of people are not aware of.
And what about fragrances? Like I had to switch out our laundry detergent and our dryer sheets and her lotion, her shampoo, her body wash.
Oh, yeah. And I put that in the environmental allergens again. But I'm glad you brought that out because we need to separate that. You're right. Because people, what are people told in a pandemic? Bleach everything. Bleach is so toxic to the human body. It's not even allowed in other countries, FYI.
Oh my gosh. I saw an article of them spraying an elementary classroom.
I can't.
full of bleach, the entire classroom just spraying it. I'm like, that's gonna help.
Right. And and there's studies that actually show that in households where bleach is used one or more times a week, the children have more respiratory issues, tonsillitis, and flu.
Oh my heck.
And yet we're like, no, no, spray everything with bleach. I'm like, OMG. And they're like, it kills the virus. I'm like, it kills the virus. Yes, it does. So I'm not denying that. But it also kills all your bacteria that lives on your body and inside your body.
Which will fight the virus.
Exactly. 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 So then we bleach, but then all the fragrances and all the, because there's no FDA regulations on our detergents and dishwasher cleaner and window cleaners. There's not. There's just, you don't even have to put ingredients on the label. And they're like, oh, it's fine. The amount of chemicals in this product is not that much. I'm like, well, if you expose your body one time, but if it's something that I'm cleaning my dishes with every single
Right.
day, I'm
Right.
exposing my children to this every day on their plates.
Right. Man.
Yeah.
Okay, so I have a question about eczema. So I saw
Yeah.
you have the 7 biggest mistakes you see when it comes to Western medicine and the treatment of eczema. What are those? I'm so curious.
Number one is that our traditional doctors refuse to acknowledge that gut health plays a major role in the development of eczema. And food is not taught in medical school as a root cause for a lot of issues. And what I mean by that is like eat healthy is told, but it's not, we don't go into the depths. And like, just like for Mila, when you have an allergy test and it's negative, they're like, yep, food is not a problem. Number two, an extensive dietary history is not routine part of the patient visit. And what I mean by extensive, when I was in traditional practice, I had 15 minutes to see my patients. And because I had learned over the years how important this was, I formed a form. I created a form where my patients could quickly, I like circle things in their diet so I can do a dietary history somewhat in a 15-minute visit, which is really hard, but that's your well check once a year. It wasn't, you have an eczema exacerbation, let's do a dietary history. You have an asthma issue, let's do it. It wasn't, you have asthma, let's talk about the inhaled steroids. You have eczema, let's talk about the topical things. So food is not treated as medicine. And Hippocrates said, let food be thy medicine and let medicine be thy food, which is, we take the Hippocratic oath, but we forgot that part. Number 3, it's the blatant overuse of antibiotics in pregnant mothers and children, like we just talked about, especially with C-sections and, ear infections. We are so eager to give antibiotics for a child with ear infections when the American Academy of Pediatrics has stated that 80% of ear infections in children over the age of 6 months get better without antibiotics. But yet the moment an ear is red, we jump for antibiotics. So a little pro tip for my parents out there, always ask, what does the ear look like? And if they're like, oh, it's just red with a little bit of fluid, that is not an ear infection. That does not require antibiotics. If it's like it's bulging hot lava and pus is about to explode, okay, that's an ear infection. But even that doesn't need antibiotics. Number 4, we talked about the overuse of common medications such as Tylenol and Zantac. Number 5, the use of topical steroids is a first-line treatment for eczema. We go to the topical steroids instead of gut healing. Number 6, the continued and highly profitable development of powerful immune-crushing medications and acting like they're no big deal. Dupixent is an immunomodulator. It is a chemotherapeutic agent, but we're not going to say that because you want to say chemotherapy because people think it's cancer. It is that powerful. It is as powerful
What
as...
do they use it for?
Dupixent it's an immunomodulator for eczema.
Oh, okay.
Yeah. So it costs over $3,000 per dose.
Oh my gosh.
And so, but again, it's like, oh, your eczema's not getting better, Dupixent, rather than like, should send you to a nutritionist. Are you pooping every day? Are you sleeping? What's your stress? And then the number 7, which we talked about, was excessive use of C-sections in deliveries.
Oh my goodness. So why do they encourage steroid creams instead of getting to the root problem? Just because they don't teach it in medical school, so it's not on the top of their mind?
Well, so in medical school, when we talk about eczema stuff or dermatology, we talk about the skin. We understand the anatomy of the skin. We talk about the layers of the skin, but you don't go, and then this is how it's connected to the rest of the body. We just talk about the skin as the skin, like it's an individual organ outside the rest of the body. But we do the same thing for lungs. Like if you have asthma, you talk about the lungs, like they exist all on their own. When you do ADHD, as the brain, because in the traditional model, we don't do the holistic, and holistic approach really means, a lot of people think it's no medicines and no vaccines and no whatever. No, holistic means that when a child comes in with an issue like eczema, we look at the whole child, like at the skin, at the gut, at the brain, at the lungs, at the family, at the community, at their full environment. So we're stepping back and looking at a huge picture of what's causing eczema or asthma rather than one organ system.
I love that. And that's why it's so effective too. Now, I'm a little nervous that some of our moms might be feeling a little overwhelmed right now because of
Yeah.
all of the like toxic things in our food and our environment. So I know. So a couple questions for our listeners. How can a mom know what foods are causing their children's skin issues to get worse? Or maybe it's not food, maybe it's the environment, like you said, or like how would they know? Like, are there steps for them to do?
Sure. So, I always take a complex thing. And when you guys listen to this, we're giving a huge broad picture, and let's break it down to simple steps that we can just kind of take some action.
Yeah.
For environmental stuff that is outdoor stuff, you can actually ask for, it's called immunocap. That's a traditional test done by a traditional doctor, covered by your insurance most of the time. And what it does, it tests for pollens, grasses, molds, dust mite, cockroaches. So then you kind of know, okay, that is a trigger. So it's something to keep in mind depending on the season. When it comes to foods, let's look at our children's diet, and let's look at it with a critical eye. We often look at it with an eye that's like, I don't want to be judged as a bad mom. Nobody's a bad mom. We are not bad moms. Did you hear what I used to feed my kids? Pop-Tarts. And on a good day, when I was a good mom in my head, I gave them toaster strudels with icing on top just to make sure they had plenty of sugar before starting school. And then I didn't know why one of my children couldn't keep himself in the seat. It was weird. But what I'm saying is we just have all that information, and life is hard and we're busy. Children are whiny, and, we just want peace in our house. So we're going to look at our children's eye with a critical eye. Do your children eat packaged foods, at least one packaged food at every meal? The answer is yes. Your child has a processed diet, and it's okay. It's okay. What that means is, all right, so let's tackle breakfast. If your child grabs a protein bar for breakfast, we may need to substitute it with a smoothie. We may need to substitute it maybe with an egg, maybe with toast and peanut butter, maybe with toast and avocado. So simple as something like that. And then once you get breakfast under your belt, then you go, let's look at our lunchbox. We're not going to look. When I started, one of the reasons when I wrote the book, my first book, I actually did an outline of exactly what I did. And when you look at how slow the steps were, you're like, seriously? Step one was literally this: Cheez-Its. How can I get a similar cracker with natural ingredient I can read? Because if you can't read it, you can't eat it. So I went to the store and I bought different kinds of Cheez-It likes until I figured out one that was a suitable replacement. And then I got rid of the Cheez-Its. Then I moved to the Ritz crackers. And then I was like, all right, well, the cinnamon toast crunch got to go. But I didn't get rid of the cinnamon toast crunch. What I did is I was like, all right, kids, we're going to have a smoothie in the morning. And after your smoothie, you can have your cinnamon toast crunch. So my people were like, well, all right. And in my smoothie, and I kid you not, my smoothie was ice cream, strawberries, and milk. And my kids were like, sweet ice cream. So, but over time, I was like, okay, so as long as it tastes like this and it looks pink, we're good. I started adding spinach. I started taking away the ice cream and added vanilla yogurt. Over time, the vanilla yogurt became plain yogurt. Then more fruits and vegetables. The smoothie today looks nothing like the smoothie from 13 years ago, but it took a long time. And as they were eating the smoothie, they became fuller and didn't want their cinnamon toast crunch. So instead of becoming a no mom, I was still a yes mom. Of course you can. But they were full from the smoothie because over time I packed it with so many goodies. But it was one step at a time. I didn't do that. And you said, well, I hear a lot of dairy. Right, because I went after food coloring first. Then I tackled sugar. Then the dairy was really late in the game for my kids. And I'll tell you, my daughter's eczema got better 95% without removing dairy. And then at the age of 16, I did this full elimination diet because for the Institute of Functional Medicine, that was my homework. And when she eliminated dairy, her skin, like acne, most gorgeous skin. She's always known for her amazing skin. So that's really but her old eczema otherwise had gone completely away. And so just look at one thing. Don't do it all. Are your kids playing outside or no too much screen time? What is your stress level in the house? Maybe, some things for screen time that isn't easy, and I use quotation marks, is that children have to be outside to earn the right to use screen time. For every 1 minute they're outside, they can get 1 minute of screen time. So it becomes a barter system. They don't want to play outside? Wonderful. They don't get any screen time. Now we don't hear about any more whining. For the children that are picky, or the kids that are like really snack, sure, you can have a snack, but which fruit or vegetable would you like to have first? Because we feed our body with something from the ground before we eat something from a package. Again, you're a yes mom, not a no mom, because you say, of course you can. But what fruit or vegetable? They say, I want a fruit or vegetable. You say, wonderful, you're not hungry. See ya. Go outside. So it becomes, they make the choice of not eating. You're not making the choice for them. When it comes to stress, certain things you can do, a small thing you can do right now is, and you go, well, how does stress affect eczema? That doesn't make sense. In our bodies, we have these cells that are called mast cells. They look like piñatas. And inside these piñatas, there are histamines that look like, let's say, candy. So we have these piñatas with candy in them that travel the body. And the body, when these guys come in contact with a pollen, a dog, dairy, processed food, they explode and the histamines get released. And when the histamines get released, eczema flares up. And cortisol, when we're stressed, the level of cortisol rises. And when the level of cortisol rises, it creates more mast cells, more of these piñatas. So your body is patrolled by thousands more histamine producing cells in your body. So you're much more likely to be irritated by the environment when you're super stressed. Just think of when you're super stressed and your child is like, where's my hat? And you're just like, I told you 1,000 times to leave it on a hook. That was a terrible example, but you know what I mean?
Right.
So I would just do small steps. I often recommend people to just get my book. If you're like, I can't, there's like way too many things I can't do it. So my book kind of walks you through step by step to turning your lifestyle around. And then I have an online
rule of 5.
Yes, the rule of 5, a parent's guide to raising healthy kids in this unhealthy world.
Great. I love that. And you make it so approachable. And if people haven't seen your Instagram, what I love is you're like, hey, here's a traditional dinner and here's an easy swap idea. And you give like 5 or 6 easy swaps. And I'm like, oh yeah, that literally looks amazing and way healthier. And your kids won't notice a huge difference. And I noticed too, when I swapped Mila out, I'm like, I kind of have to swap everything out because it's just easier.
Sure.
And there were brands that I found that I was like, oh, like they don't even notice the difference.
Right.
Like I can buy, the muffins that are made with almond flour or whatever. And they don't even really notice the difference, but they all feel so much better.
Totally. I'm so glad you said that. A lot of times it's our mindset. Like we're the problem because
Right.
we'll say, they're not going to eat that. When in fact, we have no idea, but we parent with our fear. We're like,
Right.
I don't want to spend money on this. I don't want them to be upset at dinner. And when you change your mindset, you're like, this is just how it is because food is medicine. And sometimes your medicine doesn't taste good. Okay, let's do this. And
Well, and they'll eat what you buy. Like if it's not in the house, they like my kids, I'm like, this is what we have. Like,
yeah. And then, and then people, they go, but they walk around, there's nothing to eat. I'm like, do you know how many times I hear that in my house? I'm like, that's weird because the fridge is full of food. And my kids are, there's nothing good to eat. My friend's house has amazing stuff. I'm like, your friend has a lot of acne and you don't. So I rest my case.
Yes, I love that. That's so helpful. So for the moms that want even more information, because this was just kind of like a general overview, I know you have your whole eczema transformation course that helps moms. You have an amazing YouTube channel. You have your book, Rule of Five. Where else can my listeners find more information on you?
I would love to help you guys, on my, just like Bree's talking about, on Instagram. I do a ton of free information. Of course, it's bits and pieces here and there because it's Instagram. And, but I go every weekend, I go shopping to a local grocery store, Target, Walmart, or Costco to make it affordable, because that's one of the things I get all the time too, is eating well is really expensive. So I try to break through the myths and the barriers. So I show you how to buy breakfast at Walmart and dinner at Costco and lunch at Target. And so that's free. And then if you're struggling with eczema, I have my online eczema transformation program that has helped hundreds of families achieve incredible results. Then it's reduced mom stress. And I've tried to make it super affordable for, a lot of people are like, well, can it be? Yeah, it's not going to be $2 because it's so much information. I take you through a step-by-step approach on how to see what the story was, the root cause. You will be able to identify the root cause of your child's problem. You will be in charge of the foods. You'll be in charge of the supplements. You'll be charging the food reintroduction. And you are going to be the one healing your children's eczema. And I'm just going to be there to guide you. And in our VIP course, we actually have we have group sessions on Mondays with my health coach and on Thursday with me, where we walk you through the personal problems that you're having, and we address all individual questions for eczema so we can give you additional support in this very difficult, very challenging chronic issue.
That's incredible. And I will link everything in the show notes as well, so people will be able to see all of your resources so you can help them as well. So thank you for your time, Dr. Anna Maria. I'm so grateful for your knowledge. We're going to help get this message out to as many people as possible. So
I'm so thankful to you and your audience and your team, because, the only way we can change the world is as a team, and to help one another, because we are not supposed to be isolated individual things. We are a community, and this is so wonderful. My mission is to help, 1 million children change their skin over the next 12 months. So I'm so grateful for your help in this mission.
Oh, thank you so much. We will talk to you next time. Bye.
Bye.
Thank you for joining us in today's episode. If you liked the content and want to hear more, remember to hit that subscribe button and write a review. As a small business owner, I appreciate it more than you know. If you are looking for a program to help with self-confidence, to lose weight, get in shape, and work on your mental, physical, and emotional health, check out my training programs on www.bodybybree.com. My team and I help to hold you accountable through the Body by Bree app, where you log in to see all your workouts, custom meal plan made specifically for you and your needs, and communication through the messenger. You are never alone when you're on the Body by Bree training program. Click the link in the show notes to get more information on how to transform your life from the inside out.